All right, we're at 2 o'clock. We still have people streaming in, but I'm just gonna probably kick this off and get us started with some house notes before we dive into the presentation. We've got a lot to cover, so I don't want to get us behind. I'm Jennifer. I head up the customer experience team here at QGive. We are so thrilled that you decided to join us this afternoon. It's going to be a really good use of your time if I don't say so myself. So some house notes to get us started. This is Virtual Fundraising Lab, which I'm sure you know by now. For those of you that don't know, this was an in-person event first. So we got to travel and meet you in person and have small little intimate groups. What I do love is that we have a much bigger group, as the ladies have shared. We've got over 1,000 people registered, so we're able to have interaction with so many more of you, which is really, really awesome. We are able to adjust the content and still get some back and forth. So that is great. So how we'd like to keep it still pretty collaborative is to use that questions box, use it throughout the different presentations. We do have dedicated Q&A time at the end where we'll be able to answer questions. Lori and Abby will be joining me then, so questions from all presentations. And then we'll be able to answer some during the presentations as well. So definitely use that so we can stay as collaborative as possible, even though we're not together. Another reminder is that our session does qualify for 2.5 credits for CFRE. So make sure that you track the sessions. We're going to send this out in our follow-up email, so we want you to get those credits for sure. And then while I have you, since I'm on the QGive side of things, I want to give you 2 quick QGive updates. First, our data package. Our data package includes tons of integrations with our integration partners like Bloomerang and Salesforce, and we are able to get your data over to those systems very quickly. We are waiving that fee through the end of the year. It includes a ton of other stuff. If you go to qgive.com/pricing, you'll be able to see it all. But we are waiving that fee, and we want to give you access to those additional data pieces during this time, because we just think it's more important than ever to have that. Some advanced analytics, lots of stuff to just make you more efficient and give you some data surrounding your QGive activity. So make sure if you're not taking advantage of that, you do. If anyone's interested, that is available to everybody. And then the second thing that I'm most excited about is we are in phase 1 of a beta launch of our new donation forms. I am so excited for you guys to see these things. Over the next couple of months, you're going to get lots of updates. It's a multi-step form. It's mobile first designed. It got a whole makeover, conditional fields, just recurring nudges, pictures with your donation amount, just so much stuff. And it's all come from your feedback. So I'm really excited for you guys to see those. So keep your eyes and ears open to see more information on those. That'll be coming soon. And with that, I do want to remind everybody, it's a question we get a ton. This session will be recorded and sent out after the fact this week, and it will have everything that you're looking for. It'll have the CFRE template, it'll have all the resources, the recording, everything. So with that, go ahead, make sure you have a snack or 2, make sure you have a drink, do your last minute stretch, and we are going to get started. I know you've seen the agenda a bunch, but we're going to go through it. On screen, you'll see our other presenters. I'll do more formal introductions in a bit, but we're going to kick it off with Lori Jacobwith with Ignited Fundraising. She's going to talk to us about best practices to keep donors giving, which is obviously really important during this time. We're going to do a dedicated 5-minute break. That was feedback we got. You want to get up, stretch, grab another drink, and not miss anything. So we'll do a dedicated 5-minute break and then roll into Abby's session. Abby Jarvis is our nonprofit education manager, and she is going to tell you about our generational giving study. I saw this presentation for the first time last week, and it was amazing. You're going to love this one. Lots of little nuggets. And then we're going to end today with me. I've already introduced myself. I'm going to give you a few examples of clients and how they are attacking virtual fundraising right now, and then just take you through some survey results that we got a couple of months ago when we surveyed our client base to get some data on how people are adjusting. So after that, we'll do a Q&A, like I said, with all 3 of us, and we are excited to get started. With that, I want to introduce everybody to Lori Jacobwith. She is a nationally recognized master storyteller and fundraising culture change expert who was named one of America's top 25 fundraising experts. She's delivered more than 10,000, crazy number, coaching and training sessions that have helped nonprofit organizations raise more than $400 million from individual donors. I think just in this short intro, you can see why we are so honored to have Lori with us today to share her expertise. Lori, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours, and we're going to switch it over to you.
Lori, I think you're muted.
Right. I'm on now. I was trying to be so quiet for Jennifer. Welcome to everybody. If you are just joining us and you haven't already, go ahead and type in your title and your city that you're from, your city and your state. We like to live vicariously through your weather. I am in Minneapolis myself and have been here most of my life. I'll tell you a little bit more about my background in just a moment. But really, thank you. You know, here we are in this strange, unique, very special time in our lives. And you're there, safe, hopefully, and healthy. And we are in our own homes or offices as well. So thank you for taking the time to be with me and to be with the folks at QGive. I'm really honored to be a part of today's Fundraising Lab. Your work is about building something, whether it's building strong people or making sure that your waters and land are clean. You also are building community through the communications that you have. So today we'll be talking a bit about what it is that you do in communication that keeps your donors engaged. And before I tell you a little about my background, what I'd like to have you type in right now, and so hold on to your hats, everybody, because this will flood the question box. Just type into the question box one word to describe the work of your organization. Think about that word carefully. I'm a potential donor. You only have one word to inspire me to give. What would that one word be? And while you're typing in, I am, as you heard, someone who helps people communicate around their fundraising. I have been executive director, I have been development director, I have been board member. I've done all the jobs. Currently, I'm a speaker and trainer and coach. I've written some books, but my passion is to help people get new tools to communicate powerfully. So the world wants to give you more money wherever you are located. So let's talk just a little bit about these words. Okay, we've got benevolent. Ooh, I want to know more about that. Mission driven. Well, okay, but what's your mission? Community, game changing, caring, kids, health, accountable. I want to know more about that. So the word you're choosing, one word to describe the work of your organization, should inspire me to want to ask you more questions, right? We can't tell everything about ourselves, obviously, in one word, but what's the one word that you might use? And my word is sitting on my desk here, and it is the word inspire. That is the work that I do, I believe, and I have pictures of my grandbabies on there to remind me who I'm doing this work for. So when I was young, I thought I wanted to be governor of Minnesota so I could help everyone in the whole state, or maybe I wanted to be what I told my parents was a flight attendant so I could travel and someone would pay me to fly around the country or the world. Well, fast forward many years and I actually get to help people all over the world. And when we don't have a pandemic, I'm actually helping people in their own backyard, not just on a camera like we are today. What I believe I do is help you build a foundation, a thoughtful foundation around your word choices so that you're really being authentic to who you are and how you walk alongside folks, whether it be from scholarships or Maybe you help build homes. Maybe, as I said earlier, you know, your environmental organization or a human service organization serving lots of folks, lots of people. This is the ground floor on the screen here of the Lowell Community Health Center, just outside of Boston. And a number of years ago, I got to help them raise $5 million. They had no donors, 0 donors, no database, no nothing. We raised the first $1 million without a brochure, without a case for giving. And they went on to raise that $5 million in just a year and a half. 3,000 people plus gave. But what we did is we told stories. We built a foundation of connection through the stories that we told. When I was at Prevent Blindness America in Phoenix, Arizona, where I lived for a short time, I was the only staff person when I first started. And there was a thank you note on my desk. And it was a note from Madison, her mom, Paula, thanking me for helping identify that her daughter had been blind in her left eye just before her 5th birthday. We had screened at her preschool, found this, she got glasses, she got a patch. She now has 20/10 vision in both her eyes. What Paula taught me in my time there, when it was just me as the only staff person, 12 trusty volunteers trained in a full-day training on how to do vision screenings, our one grant that we had received, and this tiny little footprint. What Paula taught me was when we go out into the community, we put a face on our work. And often that face was her daughter, little Madison. But what Paula did that I've done now ever since, and this is many years ago, is she always explained that to do a vision screening at a school, a preschool, would take about 6 to 8 volunteers, and it would take a camera, a special camera that cost $2,500. And we only had one. And we only had 12 volunteers. So we could really only do a couple of vision screenings a month. And we had hundreds of schools on our waiting list. Because she was speaking so clearly, and we put a face to the impact of our work, but also our donor support, in 2.5 years, we grew to 5 staff. Almost 900 people said, please train me. I want to be helping do vision screenings. And could we bring one to my preschool where my children are? We raised $1.2 million from individual donors. And folks, I have to tell you, this was almost 15 years ago now. So we didn't have the kind of tools you have. What I'm more proud of than the money, and that was unrestricted operating dollars from individuals. I'm more proud of the screenings that we were able to do. We exponentially grew our footprint. So I've got a couple of questions for you to get us started. And these 2 quick questions will help all of us know more about where you're at in your fundraising. So the very first question I have for you is this, and we're going to have you take a poll, so don't worry, you don't have to type anything in. What are your biggest fundraising challenges? And your options, and you can choose as many of these as you want to, are acquiring new donors, diversifying funding sources, donor retention, increased demand for your services, staff turnover. So we'll give you, the clock is ticking, the music is playing, da, 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 da. And we'll let you vote for just another, 10 seconds or so. If you want to vote on in there, I will give you a countdown. We're going to go ahead and close the poll in just a second. Everybody, we've got more of you to vote, so go ahead. We're at 70%. I'd like to get a little higher than that. If you can vote on in. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close and share the results with you so you can see them. Acquiring new donors seems to be the biggest challenge that you all have, and then diversifying your funding sources. About 40% of you talking about donor retention. Not a ton of increased demand for services, and a small amount of you said staff turnover. All right, good to know. Let's go to the next question, and that is, let's hide that question and go to What is the number of active donors, individual donors that you have in your organization? Your answers are just one now: 0 to 500, 501 to 2,500, 2,501 to 5,000, 5,001 to 10,000, and over 10,000. If you're in the over 10,000 category, we all want to be you. Go ahead and type your vote in there. I'll give you just another couple of seconds. What I will say about no matter what the size is of your individual donor base, there are inherent challenges with every size. You know, the grass is always greener. So today I'm going to give you some examples of how you can work with the people you have and keep them more engaged. All right, so let's go ahead. Anybody want to vote? Vote. Last voting happening now. We're going to close the polls and let's share. So about half of you have 500 or less donors. A handful of you have 10,000 or more, 5,000 to 10,000. There's a few of you that have that 2,500 to 5,000 range, and the biggest bulk is under 2,500. All right, good to know. Thank you for doing that. That helps me know a little bit of who I'm talking to. So let's talk about success. If you've been on a session with me before, and I'm assuming that a few of you may have, you know that I believe success is about just one thing, whether it be with your pets, your neighbors, your children, your life partner, you know, really frankly, even with ourselves. It is about what we say, how we say it, where we say it, what word choices we make. And right now in our sector, there's a research that's being done on who's giving, what they're giving to. The folks at Blue Frog have done some research and updated this infographic, this diagram that they had done a few years ago about what donors want to hear about, especially right now. You know, we're inviting people to give so we can solve a problem. And what we tend to tell them is our events are canceled, we need you more than ever, where budgets have been cut, we've been in the news. Really, what donors are looking for is some of the same things they've always been looking for. What are you doing with my money? This isn't business as usual, so what are you doing to adapt? Do you remember how I want to be communicated with? And that you value me more than ever. So be thinking about that as you take notes today and notice where it is your communication could maybe shift a little bit. When the research has been being done by Mark Phillips and his team, what they found in March, and they started doing pretty deep dive qualitative donor research. So they were calling the same donors and talking to them for a longer period of time. And this was in the UK. We've started to catch up and do some of this research also in the United States. But it does translate pretty well. In the beginning, donors just wanted to help. And so they're starting to throw money out at folks. They want to be somewhat taking care of their own feelings of helplessness. Many organizations received multiple gifts over the first 2 months or so of the pandemic. And then folks started to feel a little guilty. They were hearing stories about others that aren't doing as well, and they were giving out of guilt. What's happened now is donors truly want to be continued to be updated. They want to continue to give, and they will. They want to help, but they need to trust you as leaders in your sector. They need to understand what has happened, and they need some specifics about how they can help. So it ties in with exactly what I want to talk to you about today. How do you stand out in this huge crowd of people with hands out saying, please help, please help, please help? And frankly, I recommend you don't use those words. Our job is to inspire giving. And first impressions are, you know, have always taken just a few seconds. They're even shorter now. You know, most of us have some sort of technology nearby in our hand or on our desktop. So what we're doing is we're scrolling fast and furious, And whatever pops out at us is what we start to pay attention to. So remember that in the emails you send, in the voicemail you leave. I have a habit of leaving too long of voicemails, so I've been trying to shorten those down and make sure that they're really relevant quickly. Please don't be yammering on about yourself. You can talk about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what you've shifted and what it takes financially to do that when you make sure that you're doing that from the eyes of someone you walk alongside. Whether that is someone who couldn't get to a state park or a national park lately, but now has come back, or someone who has adopted a rescue animal, or a student who doesn't really know if they're going to be back in the classroom or not. Talking about one person allows me to connect and understand what's happening if you're specific in that story that you share. The other thing that I like to talk about a lot is what word choices are we making? Not just when we talk to others, but especially when we talk to ourselves. So these are words I don't recommend. These are words that have the feeling of duty and obligation and have to and struggle, and they just don't feel good. So donate, help us, give more, give again. I recommend taking a pause for just a moment and thinking about words that are inspiring. Invest. Together, what can we create right now that's different? Let me show you how you can make an impact. Here's how you can make a bigger impact. We want to make sure to put a face on what you're making possible. And frankly, we're looking for long-term partners. Being clear about that allows you to identify folks who want to give not just one time or even monthly, but maybe they want to give a legacy gift and talk to you about some planned giving. The stealth conversation that happens a lot and we don't even notice are these word choices that we say to ourselves, or I just heard on a call with some staff earlier this morning, this is really hard. Our donors, we have donor fatigue. Well, I don't believe in donor fatigue. If you know anything about me, you know that I believe in uninspiring message fatigue. You might hear people say, well, we don't have enough time, or our board won't go for that. Well, frankly, then let's use language that is about possibility. We're learning to tell you about what's missing and what our community is requesting of us. We want to inspire you to do whatever you are able to do financially or with your time right now. What if together we could rescue all those pets, keep our water clean, scholarship all the students who need to, provide an iPad for every student who needs one for the school year. We are looking for long-term partners, our people, our very special donors. We're looking to find more people just like you. The way truly to stand out is to put a face on my impact, but also make sure that you're sharing what it takes to make that happen. One of my current clients is the Center for Victims of Torture. They are located here in the Twin Cities, but they do work all over the world. And right now they've created something that's called a Rebuilding Lives experience. In those experiences, every couple of weeks, we go to a different country. Donors are invited in preparation for their event that will happen this fall. That's already planned to be virtual, but they're learning about, this was June 26th on the International Day of Support of Victims of Torture, which I didn't know there was such a thing until I followed them on Instagram. And this is staff holding up signs of hope and possibility. They sent that to donors to let us know that's what we're making possible. You want your donors to feel your mission, to experience your mission, even if they cannot come to the office, volunteer in the same way. This is the daughter of the executive director of the New Jersey Autobahn. And can't you just sort of feel her wonder and gaze as she's looking up? She was learning about birds and learning about the outdoors. And her dad captured this picture, and it's been shared on their posts quite a bit. I want you to sort of rest easy that The work of engaging donors, when it's done well, it's really simple. Today isn't about giving you a whole bunch of homework and having you feel like you have to change everything you're doing. I congratulate you and applaud you, those of you who are with us here live, and those of you who will listen later and implement. This is really about taking a short little pause to support yourself so you can be more for those who need you to be more, the people in your community or the mission that you need to do more of, and also to be more for your donors, to have communication that really matters to them. So where to focus your precious commodity of time? On communication and actions that cause you to really know your supporters, share clear messages, hold yourself and others accountable to whatever it is we said we would do, and to continually invite participation. So that's what we're going to dive into right now. And I've got some thoughts for you and some examples. Be sure if you've got questions to go ahead and type them into the question box. The team here will gather those questions and we'll make sure to answer them when we go through the panel at the end. All right, so knowing your supporters. If I asked your board and your entire staff, who are our top donors?
Your board and
I'm hearing some feedback from someone, so we want to make sure and mute everybody if we can. How often do your supporters give? Who's been giving the longest, the most? Would you notice any of them out in your community? These questions are what a solid plan, a simple plan of knowing your supporters looks like. And how you might do that is by understanding when you put that donor wall up, when you send out your annual report, taking a moment to think about how many of these people have I met? How many of these people have we called to thank? Know the faces. Now is a really cool opportunity. We're seeing a lot more faces on camera. So who do you have on your staff who's taking a quick screenshot of some of the donors you've never met before? I loved what Jennifer said at the beginning. Hey, seeing a lot of, familiar names and client names on this session. Well, how cool is that she knows the names of the people who use the services of QGIve, and she's able to give you a shout out. I want your board to be able to do that, and I want you to be able to do that. So how can you do that? Use social media. One of the organizations I've worked with for about 15, 16 years, Volunteers of America in North Louisiana, they do a fundraising committee spotlight once a month. This was a new member of our fundraising committee. And one of the things that I liked about it is I met William Bradford just about 2 weeks before this was posted. Maybe it was a little longer, maybe 6 weeks, because it was before everything shut down. And he had a t-shirt and flip-flops, and he was a lot more relaxed looking, but then he had this very professional picture. Make sure to tag that person and make sure to let your board know that you've posted about another volunteer and have them go comment and share. So you're building visibility. This is an older photo. I just had dinner with my niece, Natalie, who you see in this picture. This was from a number of years ago. When we can go back to having in-person events, which might be a while, this organization does a fabulous job of having every single person who comes in the door. They had 4 stations set up, and they had us take pictures together. So we got to take pictures with our guest. They posted these on social media. Then they could know, because we had to give them our name, who were the people that gave that day. They have this information forever, so new staff, as they come in, can start to put faces with the names of donors they might not have met yet. Again, with in-person events, though, I've started to see organizations have, when we have our name, like signed in on GoToMeeting here, it could say Lori Jacobwith, founding member of the CTC Society. So there's my little name badge that tells you I've been a part of the organization for a long time. So this organization, they just keep adding ribbons, and people have competitions for who can have the most designations. Were they a part of the matching gift? Are they a board member? Are they a volunteer? What are you all doing right now to learn more virtually about your donors? I'd love to see a few comments typed in just to hear. Let me answer Molly's question while you're answering that. What are you doing right now virtually to learn more about your donors? Molly's wondering, what if someone is happy to share their story but not let us take their photo to go along with the story? I've got an example that I'll show you in just a minute, Molly. You know, you can use hands, you could use feet, you could use a group shot of people, you could use a silhouette. There are a number of things you can do, and then change the name so that, you know, we're protecting the person's identity if they want. There's all kinds of ways we can still feel connected to that person if it's a powerful story. All right, let's see what some of you are saying that you're doing. Volunteering on Zoom, calls with our kids, love that. Board members are reaching out to donors one-on-one. I'm so glad, and I'm jealous that you have a board that's doing that. We've been calling all our donors on a regular schedule, just check in. Yay, Carolyn, I am ringing my bell for you. That is a bell ringing moment. Reaching out to new supporters that gave because of COVID, excellent. Doing Zoom with 4 to 5 donors at a time to catch up. Just send a survey to our long-term donors. Great ideas. Love it, love it, love it. Calling first-time donors, sending thank you cards. You guys are doing excellent things. The thing you want to know, and you want to have this built into your board meetings, your committee meetings. I'm going to ask someone from QGive if you can just go through and make sure that everybody's on mute. If you would, that would be great. Know the names and faces of as many folks as possible, but have conversations at your meeting. All right, can you hear me now? Okay, great. All the sound went away, so all the noises went away. So staff, board, fund development committee, you want to know and ask yourself the questions. Who gave this week or month? How many people are giving each year, and who are they? And do we have a plan for staying in contact with them, not just during the pandemic, but afterwards? If you don't have a donor database, you want to have one. Excel works fine for about 100 people, and then you got to have something else to keep track. So knowing that, you would be scribbling away here. I have a checklist that I'll share with you that will get sent out as a part of the follow-up email, but I'm breaking down the checklist into the 4 parts for you. So does your communication in this part 1 allow us to thank for something specific, ask a question and capture a response, entice or require feedback? I love that some of you are doing the survey to ask some questions. And does it allow us to learn something new? Even donor thank you calls should be about learning something new about that person. Now, many of those donor thank you calls obviously are going to be voicemail messages, but if you can learn something new, I've been able to make some thank you calls for an organization I'm doing some work with, and I'll tell you what, people are loving to talk right now, and it's okay. We can listen, right? Number 2 best powerful, simple practice to engage your donors is to share clear messages. I was just before this, in the hour before this, I was on a panel, a focus group for our Association of Fundraising Professional chapter here in Minnesota. And they're doing focus groups with longtime members to find out what could we be doing better. You know, what do you think our vision and our mission are? And what some of us had to say wasn't so pretty because we don't know, because the messages aren't clear. Our work at any time is to break down the confusing or large work programs thing that we do into simple, easy, understandable communication sound bites, if you will. When we have a disaster, unfortunately, we're very clear. I don't believe we need a disaster or a pandemic to have people understand what it is that it will take to fully fund our mission. So if you're not being clear what it'll take this year, notice I haven't said what you need. I'm not a fan of using the word need when it comes to dollars. You don't need anything. What it'll take to fully fund your mission is a certain dollar amount. But if you're not clear about what has to be raised, especially with increased costs with the pandemic, I don't know that I could give you $50,000 instead of my normal $1,000, or $1,000 instead of my normal $100. So sharing what it takes and putting a face on your mission. I give you permission to talk about money so you can raise more money. No kidding. So you want to make sure you're saying, what does it truly take? And this is sometimes a whole exercise that takes a full hour of a workshop to figure out, and that is, what's our visionary, no kidding, if we fully funded our mission? That means, what have we cut to the bone? What are we saying no to? Where do we have waiting lists? And what would that dollar amount be? And it might be a kind of big, scary amount. For some of you, you may have already done this. Then let us know that, even now. It's not a scary number, it's a factual number. And then you want to just subtract out, what is it that you've received so far this year from any sources of revenue? So that whether it's March or it's June or it's August or it's November, you know, your staff leadership, your board, and your community understands where we're at. So you're making it really clear. Your messaging is specific. This is an organization called For Kids' Sake. They are very small. They have maybe 2 paid staff, and I believe the executive director does not take a paycheck. She has never wanted to. They serve orphans in Ethiopia, I believe, but they're very specific on their website about what the dollars will do. And they go all the way up to $10,000. So I can make a decision about how I can make a difference in that orphanage. When we're sharing a story, the thing about stories is your brain and your supporters' brains, the families of those you serve and those you are walking alongside and serving, all of us, our brains are wired to think in story. So reflect back those stories to us. How are you all delivering your programs right now? If you're doing that by providing therapy via telephone or, the Zoom screen, you don't have to show us the screen, but you could take a screenshot of yourself and your microphone and how whatever it is you're doing. I love this picture. I love this man's wise face. He's got lots of lines. He looks like he's lived a long time. He is a recipient of an organization called Senior Community Services here in the Twin Cities. They don't provide direct service much. They do just a tiny little bit through volunteers, and most of that is going to rake the leaves or shovel the snow. They are really a connector. So what they first told me when I met them is, we don't have a lot of stories to tell, and we figured out they have a ton of stories to tell. And now we can find those stories on their website, in their social media, and their board members have been trained to put a single face to what their donor impact might be. How many of you are mailing? Just send out a yes on the chat, or in the question box. Are you sending mailings? You are, good. So mailings, you want to be clear. This is a story, but this was a 4-fold document so when you opened up the page, this was across the bottom. This was a story about Greg, who lived in a tent, decided he knew there was more to life, and at 55 years old, still living in a tent, he decided to register for college. He realized he couldn't make it through community college if he was going to stay living in a tent. And this is a real person. And they told us in this newsletter that my gift of $10,000 helped people like Greg move past his trauma. When he was able to get some stable housing, it happened to be through the pandemic because he was having to be moved off the streets in California, where this was. No homeless people could be on the streets. This is a real story shared just this spring, helped to raise like $100,000 for the organization. This was clear, one person, $1 amount. But in that mailer that they sent out, they had everything from $75 and a story about that, $500 gift and a story about that. All right, so your homepage, your donate page, your social media, you sometimes want to share stories. And as I said earlier, you might not be able to put a face. You might not be able to tell us the real name. This is a pretty poignant picture. It is from the Center for Victims of Torture on their website. It is on their donate page. And then the quote comes from an anonymous person who didn't want their name listed, but I can feel the pain, a little bit of the pain, and I can feel the love. You're looking for me to feel something in your communication. That's why I will give again. You've got statistics you want to share, then weave it into a story, because I will remember how the story caused me to feel. How does an organization that serves infants through adults share a personal story without alienating donors that have a different age bracket interest? Love this question. You know, what is the right story to tell? That's a great segue to tell you this. Really, any story you tell, you would say, we want to make sure to inspire you, and we've got thousands of stories to share. Today, I'm just going to share one, but next time I'll share about a different age group and a different program. My goal today is to teach you a little something new about our work, hopefully to inspire you and make sure that you know how you could plug in, how you could make a bigger impact if you've got time on your hands or dollars you can give. The story that's the best story is a story that doesn't have an ending. So you might tell a story about someone who is a child, and then the next part might be, but we're going to tell you next time in next month's newsletter about her mother or the grandparents that are helping raise that child who are also receiving programs and services support from us. When I worked at the Department of Ophthalmology at the University of Arizona down in Tucson, we had 26 programs, 13 areas of research, a vision van, you know, all kinds of different things. I found one story that I could never tell without sort of tearing up. And I would always say that's one of thousands of stories I could tell you. If I knew my audience and I knew what their interest was, of course I would tell a story to speak into their listening, but often you don't. So you allude to the fact that you've got more and that there's more work to do. So clear communication, especially right now. We have to dispel myths about where you're getting your dollars. Maybe I don't personally need you, but I might know someone who does. So keep relevant to me, even though I might not. I'm not a person who's been a victim of torture, but I'll tell you what, I have given to that organization this spring because they inspire me. Your mission might feel in the scheme of things like it's less important right now. It is not. Whether you are an arts organization, whether you are a shuttered office but still delivering Meals on Wheels program, a school trying to figure out how to deliver, you know, your programs in your classrooms, every single one of you was relevant when you were implemented, when you were started, when you were dreamed about. So talk to us about that. What has changed? How are you doing your work today that keeps you relevant? Really be authentic in your communication. So the second part of the checklist is, does this communication show people how we're helping just one person? We're talking about one person at a time, and we're doing it in an inspiring way. I want to know more about the other people that you're serving. Is it sharing an update about our money story, or what I call your funding gap? Are you informing about growth or about what you've had to change or shift in how you're delivering your programs and services right now and your vision for the future? Is there a specific next action? All right, let's dive into number 3. This one's short and sweet, but very powerful. This is about accountability. Aristotle, that smart man, said all communication must lead to change. So you want to retain your donors. You want them to stick around. If you want me to stick around, and the abysmal first-time donor retention rate is less than 21% in our country, you want me to give multiple times in a year. Because when I give multiple times in a year, and especially if I give monthly, I stick around a lot longer. And when a board member makes a thank you call to me, and that happens in the first 24 to 36 hours, my second gift will be up to 40% higher. And no kidding, 2 years later, 70% of your first-time donors will still be giving. Imagine if you could increase your donor retention from 20% from your first-time donors to 70%. And some of you are, by making sure to call those first-time donors. How to share about the funding gap without talking about lack. You are very clear, Kitty, that here's what it takes to do our work. Here's what it takes to fully fund our mission versus here's what we need. To fully fund our mission in 2 years, we'll be a $5 million organization. This month, the milestone we have to reach to get there is blank. So you're really having me understand what that next milestone is. You're being specific about by when. And you're getting me excited through the messages that you share to take action now. This was in this signature of the folks at Claire Housing in their both in their e-newsletter and their personal signatures. So we saw every single day that we got an email from them how much there was to raise, and their goal was to raise $705,000. When they did this year, their goal the year before had been in the $500,000 to $600,000. They were sure they weren't going to raise $705,000. Well, they exceeded it because we knew what it was all the time. This is a really a deeper dive into a topic we could talk more about another day, but you know, we want our board members to do some things, and they're willing to do some things. So a couple of organizations that I've worked with have created personal accountability scorecards, report cards. They go just to that person. This is a 8.5 by 11 sheet folded in half. Their fund development committee has created their legacy that goes on the back. It says we're a team that sustains the model of fundraising that they've chosen to use. We communicate the return on investment to our donors, and we generate sustainable funding through lifelong donors. But inside, it's what have they agreed to do? These are the activities that they have to be a part of as a board member or a committee member. On the right are the goals that they set for themselves at the beginning of their fundraising year, which is September for them. And then they have hand filled in, staff fills in the time, you know, just before the board meeting, what they have as account for those people. Oftentimes, board members will say, or committee members will say, wait a minute, I forgot to report to you that I did make some thank you calls. I did invite some people. This starts to build an accountability in a whole different way. So part 3 of your communication checklist is to ask yourself these questions. Are we sharing some sort of update about what we've asked people to do? Are we showing progress towards our next milestone financially or programmatically? Are we showing some positive outcomes for what folks agreed to do? Simple as that. So the last area of communication is to continually invite participation. This does not mean we are begging and pleading and cajoling people to give money all the time. So this is the 200th anniversary of the National Park System. What a cruddy year to have your 200th anniversary be when you can't be open. So what they did for a number of months, now this is still on their website, just checked today, but it's a little bit smaller. You could take a virtual tour. They have created a bunch of ways you could participate in the park system by clicking on a certain link, and they have color sheets for kids. They have an email that comes out with a special video. There's different games you can play, all kinds of things that they've done to inspire connection with their very large, vast number of people around the country that support them. Here in the Twin Cities, we have one of the only Asian American theaters in the country. They created something called Mutini Hour. And it was Friday nights at 5. You would bring your, cocktail of choice if you wanted, or your glass of water. And they kicked it off with their founder, who hasn't been around for a while. He came back and talked with the new staff. But they had George Takei come and speak with them. They've invited speakers from around the country to be a part of their virtual event. This organization, I just love the work that they do. They support children through their Christian focus around the world who cannot eat, who don't have clothes. One of the emails that they recently sent out had these photos and faces and a little bit of information about different countries. But then as you scroll down, we could see in each country what was happening, what the projects were that my dollars were funding. And then you scroll down a little further in the email, and they shared what the COVID relief plans were by different ministries that they've set up. Really powerful, really easy to read. I've gone back to it to learn more regularly to find out what they're doing. If you're not getting your donors ready to give for your fall event or your fall appeal by gathering them virtually, you're missing an opportunity. So these are the folks in Volunteers of America, North Louisiana, down in Shreveport. The first time they did their Hope Begins Here virtual experience was back in April, and they had nearly 50 people show up. When they did their Hope Begins Here experiences in their city live, 12 people or 13 people were showing up. So now more and more people are learning about what does it take to do your work, what programs are looking like right now. Just today, in fact, just a few minutes before we came on, I was looking at some of the social media posts for some of my clients, and I have met this gentleman myself. He is a very special person at Volunteers of America. His name is Wayne. He's been around for a long time, but he passed away from cancer. Now, I'm guessing as one of their multi-year donors, I probably will get an email about that as well, because they will know that not all of their donors are able to be on social media. So they're reporting out information on a regular basis to all of us. If you're a builder, if you're a habitat organization, or you've got a construction project going on, take this advice or this tactic from Claire Housing. Claire Housing refurbishes buildings, and they make them into apartments for people who have HIV or AIDS and they've been homeless. So they have a really passionate group of supporters. Whenever they build and renovate a building, they invite folks to give thoughts, well wishes to the folks who are going to move in there. And they take pictures of those and they share them with those new residents, but they also put them into the walls of the building. So this time capsule of good thoughts and happy thoughts is surrounding people like a big hug all the time. I really love the idea because I've been able to do this a few times in communities where their work was desperately needed. I'm a big fan of having your donate button not say the word donate. When you're sending out your e-news, when you're doing whatever and you've got an opportunity to teach me something, make sure that you're putting some words in that are about your mission. I love what you just said, Carolyn. We have folks write on the studs and send the pictures out to the donors. See, that's perfect. You're making sure that we feel something about the work that's happening, even if we can't be there. So invest in creative connection for people of all abilities. This is an organization that serves very, very special needs children and adults who cannot hear, often don't have any words. They can't use their words. This is a Habitat affiliate that I got to do a tiny bit of work with. Their organization had to cancel their spring events, so they had a virtual build-a-thon. They had families doing crafting of building a home with whatever materials. They entered different categories. They had a best of show, an edible, original category, most detailed. They had different age groups. Another Habitat group that I've worked with quite a bit, and their first Sights and Bites experience was about an hour-long van trip around the city of Waterloo, showing people what was a house that is in construction, a house that is completed, in a community that they couldn't build in right now because they didn't have the resources. Doing that sort of messaging and clear messaging, they talked about $150,000 to build one house, $987 to buy all of the appliances. Well, folks, they got a gift just over a year ago of $1.8 million from the Community Foundation and a matching partner to build in the community that they had driven by to see didn't have any houses, affordable houses for the community. They're still doing their Sights and Bites tours. It'll be socially distanced in September. For you all, this one I hope makes you laugh out loud just a little bit. I don't know if we have any theater groups on, but here in the Twin Cities, we have Park Square Theater. They are had to cancel all their performances, but they are doing a riddle puzzle sort of mystery game during the pandemic. And you get to sign up by purchasing a ticket for $30, and you get all 4 segments. You get to watch and find out the answer to the mystery. But it's really fun and engaging, and it makes sure to keep their community doing something even while they can't walk through their doors. So the last part of the checklist is, does this communication allow us to make it easy and fun to bring a guest, even online? Is it compelling and immediate action? Is it inviting a specific financial contribution? And for you all, is it making sure to have our community experience us in some way? So you can do things the same way you have, or you can do things in ways that inspire you, are authentic. And I say that's the easier way. That's the more fun way. You have a choice. Here's the overall questions. But what I'd like to have you type in while I'm just going through some wrap-up stuff is, what is one new communication action you might take away from all the things I threw at you and let your hair blow back during this time? So here's the communication checklist you'll be able to download. We'll send you a link to that. I'm going to go past this really quickly and just remind you, you can stay in touch with me in lots of different ways. I have a brand spanking new website that just came out on Monday. We are working to get it done in time for today. You can also stay in touch with me on social media. All right, let's go back and see what folks are saying. Calling donors and learning something new. Board accountability. Communicate the goal, really know my donors. What else have we got here? We've got more. Really easy to change word to donate to invest. I like the idea of one photo, one story. I love the idea of utilizing our board more and thanking donors. Zoom with small groups of donors. Inspired communication, yes. Excellent. So it sounds like you've learned a few things. So you're typing that in. I just want to make sure to share one last quote with you from J.K. Rowling, one of my sheroes. It is our choices that show what we truly are far more than our abilities. You know, we are working in homes where the cat's walking across the desk and the kids are yelling and the lawn care people are outside, or whatever's going on. It really is, what are we choosing to focus on right now? And that is take just a little bit of a pause to say, am I inspiring? Is this inspiring them? Would I be excited if I got this? Thank you all. I look forward to answering your other questions that you have. And I know for a fact the folks at the QGIve team were wondering how I would get through all my slides in that short period of time, but we did it.
That was amazing. On the dot, Lori. You did so Great. We have lots of engagement. We do have some questions queued up for our Q&A session later. So thank you for sticking around to help us with that. And with that, I think we're going to take our 5-minute break. So if everybody wants to get up, stretch, top off your coffee, we are going to go into our generational giving study next. Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. It is just after 3 o'clock, and I'm going to show you my face. I feel like one of my favorite parts of doing the in-person fundraising labs was actually getting to make eye contact with you guys and interact with you person to person. And I wish I could do that with you now, but the closest we can get is you looking at my mug while I talk to you. So, I am going to talk to you about the research study that QGIV did at the beginning of this year. And I am really excited to kind of share some information and share the findings that we learned and then what you can do with those findings to improve your fundraising. So, Jennifer kind of introduced me at the beginning of the presentation, but my name is Abby. I'm the nonprofit education manager at QGIV. I've been here for a little over 7 years at this point. I am also, when I'm not at work, I am on a board for a local nonprofit here in our hometown of Lakeland, Florida. And I also volunteer with a couple other organizations. And what I'm really passionate about is taking studies and data and statistics and best practices, all the kind of boring things that take a little extra mental energy to wrap your mind around, make those really easy to access and really easy to apply to your fundraising. I am an amateur beekeeper. If you are interested in things I do also outside of work, and I have a huge garden. I don't know about you guys, but I have been kind of stressed out during the pandemic, and I've been working at home since March, so I channel a lot of that nervous energy into working in the garden. So the things I'm going to talk about today come straight from the Generational Giving Report, a study that QGIV did. It is all based on real life data that we collected in December of last year, and it's very up to date and very relevant to what you're doing right now. Before I get really into the findings of the study, I want to give you some context on why it's so important to understand how different generations want to interact with you. So here's some background information about the study. We interviewed 1,300 different people. We interviewed people of all ages and genders, and we interviewed only people who had made a donation within the last year. We really wanted their preferences and their experiences to be at the top of their mind when they were answering our questions, so that was very important to us. After we got all of that data, we grouped the information by age, and then that gave us a look at how different generations preferred to interact with the organizations they supported. So here's a quick breakdown of who actually responded. I wanted to point out that while baby boomers only represent a little over a quarter of the people who responded, they are generally the group that gives the most in terms of philanthropic dollars. I did want to point out that a third of our respondents were millennials, so that is a little of a large representation of that group. Very few Generation X people actually responded to us, which makes me kind of sad, but also suits them. They are called the forgotten generation, which is kind of a bummer, but it suits here. The big thing I wanted to point out here, though, is only a little over 1% of the people who responded to the survey were people of the greatest generation. So we didn't want to discount that group completely. We folded their answers into the answers of the baby boomers, but we weren't able to kind of pull them out as a group. I think we only had 4 people from that generation respond to us. There was a baseline that I want to introduce. So all of the people that we looked at generally gave between $5 and $55 per transaction. So we're not looking at major donors. We're not looking at major sponsors. Most of these people gave between $100 and $500 a year. So these are, as a general rule, going to be members of that kind of large block of donors that are very supportive, but don't represent kind of the one and done donors and don't represent your major donors. One thing that was very interesting is most of the members of the generations we interviewed have given to a nonprofit long-term, and most of them had also stopped long-term support. So these are really your everyday donors. There are people who may be supporting you long-term, they give modestly, and they tend to stay involved if you give them a very clear set of communications. And the information I'm going to present today is super important for two real reasons. One of them is sustainability. And when I say sustainability here, I'm not talking about like the no waste wooden toothbrush kind of sustainability. I'm talking about the sustainability that will allow your organization to grow and thrive over the next several years. Some statistics that are causing some concern in the industry right now those statistics kind of represent that gifts from individual donors are down, philanthropic dollars are up. So if you are like the average nonprofit, you are getting the majority of your donations from companies or donor advised funds or large grants, maybe from the government. And the money that you see from individual donors like me are going down. Does that kind of resonate with you guys? Is that a pattern that you're seeing? Let me know. I'm very curious. That is a concern because of something called the dependency quotient. And that is a very complicated term that represents a pretty simple formula almost. So your dependency quotient represents how dependent you are upon a few individuals for a significant portion of your revenue. So if you have a large donor base with lots of individuals, your dependency quotient is pretty low. If you get a lot of your money from maybe 5 or 6 corporate partners or major donors, your dependency quotient is very high. The problem with having a high dependency quotient is that if you were to lose one of those donors, that could be devastating to your revenue. If you depend on lots of different people engaging with you and giving to you, if you lose a handful of donors, it's not the end of the world. So one reason you want to understand these generational preferences is because you want to make your organization more sustainable by attracting people to your donor base and keeping them there. That will make you less dependent upon a few major donors, and it will mitigate the risk of losing a large chunk of your revenue stream if you do happen to lose a donor. So this is important. The second reason understanding these differences is really important is because we want to look at retention. We, as a general rule in the nonprofit industry, lose between 35 and 45% of our donors every year. And that changes depending on the source you look at. But if you are like the average nonprofit, you're losing about half of your donors or more that you acquire each year. And that means you're constantly working to acquire new donors. If you, oh no, there we go. If you understand what your donors want from their relationship with you, though, you are much more well equipped to keep them engaged with you, to keep them donating, and to potentially inspire them to donate in greater amounts with greater regularity. So if we have a grasp on our preferences and our donors' preferences, we can accomplish a couple of things. You can mitigate financial risk by decreasing your dependency quotient. You can build a more sustainable future for yourself by having and building and maintaining a large donor base. And you can also increase your donor base by spending less money on donor acquisition. That means that more money that you bring in will actually stay within your organization instead of being spent on marketing assets. So this is more important than it ever has been. I have spoken to a lot of you over the last few months, and you are facing a lot of different challenges and obstacles with your organization. This data will help you overcome some of those obstacles. If you understand how your donors want to talk to you and what they want to hear, if you understand where they want to talk to you and how they want to hear from you, you can get in contact with them and start building relationships that will be good for them, obviously, but they'll be good for you too. You can also take this opportunity to really contact with them or connect with them on a very personal level. You can tell them how much of a difference their money is making right now. And you can actually eventually build a relationship with your donors that will let you sit with your donors and brainstorm with them and figure out different ways that you could be communicating with them that maybe you haven't explored yet. So this all being said, I'd like to get a feel for your donor base. If you look at baby boomers, millennials, Generation X, and Generation Z, who is the largest group of donors for your organization? Very curious about that. Let's see. What do you guys have to say? Lots of you, all of you are saying baby boomers. That is not surprising. That is actually pretty standard. Generation, or the baby boomer generation right now does have, as a general rule, the most available discretionary income. I am seeing someone said that Generation Z is their biggest donor base or chunk of their donor base, and that's really exciting, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. So I'm really glad for you that you guys are saying boomers, and I'm curious to see how that aligns with this next slide that I'm going to show you. All right. So one of the first questions we asked when we sent out this survey is, what is your number one kind of vertical? I hate using that term, but there's not a better one out there. These are the top 3 causes that each generation supports. So the green cause that you see highlighted is the number 1 most popular segment of the nonprofit industry for each generation. The orange one is the second most favorite. The blue is the third most popular. So you can see here, baby boomers as a whole give more overwhelmingly to religion than to any other vertical. We were not particularly shocked by that. One thing that we were surprised by is I want to point out these two. So Generation X and Generation Z are very aligned with the causes they like to support. They're passionate about wildlife and environmental conservation. They love the arts, they love humanities, and they're very interested in community development. I thought it was kind of sweet that Generation Z likes to support youth development. So they are the most youthful of our group, but they are the most invested in supporting youth. So I actually want to ask you a quick question before I dive into baby boomers. And I am curious about what you think is the baby boomers' number 1 reason for providing long-term support. So if a donor in the baby boomer generation decides to support you long-term, what do you think will motivate them to do that most? I'm getting a lot of answers really quickly. I'm very excited about that. So right now, you guys are kind of neck and neck. They feel that their money is being used wisely and they're very connected to your cause. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds before we kind of wrap that up. But right now, the number 1 answer is that they're very connected to your cause, and you are very close. Right now, according to our data, the number 1 reason baby boomers provide long-term support is because they feel their money is being used wisely. And I think you'll find that the statistics I'm about to show you really back that up. So 45% of baby boomer donors who are interested in giving to you will research you first. That's a pretty significant portion. My button isn't working. There we go. They told us that they want to support respected nonprofits. That's very important to them and ranked very highly when we talk to them. When they are evaluating you as a nonprofit to decide if they want to give, they are going to look at your financial reports first and foremost, and then some of them will go check out evaluation sites like GuideStar or Charity Navigator or something like that. The things that will put them off from supporting you are seeing unreasonably high overhead in your financials. So that's going to be an important thing to talk to them about. And they're also very put off if they get negative feedback about your organization from their friends and family. So as you're thinking about acquiring and retaining baby boomer donors, remember that they view their donation with you not so much as a gift, but as an investment. They are investing in your cause, and they are going to check you out like they would check into a business that they were going to invest in. Show them that you're going to use their money wisely, and make sure there are resources out there, both maybe putting your $9.90 on your donation page and having an active profile on Charity Navigator and GuideStar and things like that. Those are going to be very important to this group of donors. Interestingly, I was very surprised by this. I thought the majority of baby boomers would want to give to you as a response to direct mail. Certainly the largest group of baby boomers want to do that, but they still little less than half want to participate that way. But 44% want to donate with a physical check. That is changing, and that is currently in kind of a weird state of flux because of COVID. That pattern is starting to change. I'm fascinated to see if we hear that from other organizations. I don't know, maybe you can chime in. Are you seeing fewer checks come in from your baby boomer donors? Are you seeing more active donations online? Very interested in hearing about that. This group is, when we asked them if they would be willing to add a couple of dollars to an online donation to offset processing fees, they were kind of 50-50. Half didn't want to, half said they would consider it, a few said that they didn't know. The big takeaway here is that these donors are very traditional. They generally want to give in response to direct mail, and they want to send you a check, but that can change. If you are concerned about processing checks right now, especially if you're in an area that's being particularly hard hit, there's no harm in asking your direct mail donors to give online. You can add a little link or call out how they can give to you online. They may be more willing to change their donation style than we give them credit for. So just ask, there's no harm in it. The reason I think they are willing to give online is because of this next thing. So 33% of your baby boomer donors want an email receipt, and only 25% want a receipt through the mail. I think that's fascinating because more than 25% want to give to you through the mail. So this generation as a whole is very comfortable communicating with you both online and offline. They want to hear from you semi-regularly. As a general rule, if they want to hear from you at all, a lot of baby boomers said that they didn't particularly want updates after they gave. They want to hear from you on a quarterly basis. And as a general rule, they want to hear from you either through direct mail, which is not surprising, or through email. So this is indicative of the fact that they are open to both online and offline communications. But when you do update them, what they are most interested in is seeing financial reports, again, showing that you've used their money wisely. It's very important to them. Many baby boomers are very tech savvy, so you can send that financial report through email, direct mail. You'll hear me say this a lot. We look at each of the generations in this presentation individually, but each generation is made up of individuals. So get to know your donors, get to talking with your baby boomer donors, and ask how they want to hear from you. And tell them if you need to switch to doing online instead of direct mail. They are pretty open to that. The next one I'm going to look at with you is the Generation X. So I'm curious, I'm going to ask the same question for all the generations. What do you think is the Generation X's #1 motivator for giving long-term? Well, let me know. So these people are generally between the ages of 35 and 54. They are, they're a smaller organization or smaller generation than the millennials. A lot of you are saying that they are very connected to the cause, and that's the #1 reason they support you. And I'm going to give it another minute. 60% of you now say that. Okay, so here's a secret. Generation X likes to donate to nonprofits over a long period of time because they want their legacy and their identity to be associated with being philanthropic. So this is a very personal thing for them. When they give you a gift, they are leaving a legacy and establishing an identity of philanthropy. And that is why they're so fastidious about researching people. So if you remember, baby boomers, only about 45% of them are going to research an organization before they donate. That jumps up to 60% with Generation X. When they donate to you, though, or as they decide if they're going to donate to you, they want to see testimonials from people that you have helped, and they want to hear from their friends and family that you're a good organization. So make sure you're sharing testimonials on your different channels and try to focus on building good relationships with people and kind of building almost like an ambassador program for people who will advocate for you online. They do also check Google reviews, which I think is fascinating. I don't think I've ever looked at a Google review for a nonprofit in my life, but Generation X does. The things that will put them off if they are interested in donating to your organization is they are very put off by outdated websites and poor reviews on third-party sites. So if you haven't updated your nonprofit's website since like the early 2000s or even over the last couple of years, it's time to put that on your to-do list because you could be dissuading some Gen X donors from giving to you. They do also love to give through social media. So what they'll do, they will kind of see an appeal from you on Facebook. They'll kind of wonder what you're all about. They'll go check out your website and then they will make a donation. These people are looking for your social media channels and they will react and respond well to appeals that you make on those channels. They prefer to give digitally. One thing that I think is hilarious is that 47% of them said that they wanted to support your organization by giving you stock or other assets. Unfortunately, when we sent out this survey, we didn't have the ability to really ask how people defined stock and asset transfers. This could be anything from actually giving you stock to giving you donations like old cars or boats or real estate or something else. A lot of them do also prefer to give with e-check. So I am seeing a few donation forms that do not have EFT enabled. So if you want to reach out to these donors, please enable e-checks on your donation forms. One thing that is interesting about this generation is that they are motivated by tax deductions. This is kind of a sticky situation for many of you. I know if you're like me, you've seen a lot of studies from a number of different resources saying that adding language about tax deductibility to a donation form actually decreases the number of people who make a gift on that form. So if you want to reach out to this group of donors, maybe don't talk about tax deductions on your donation form, but do include language about tax deductions on your confirmation page and in your receipt. That way you kind of get the best of both worlds. You make them feel really great about giving, but you don't decrease conversions on your donation forms. I did want to point out that because this group is such a digital group and they are very concerned about being philanthropic, they are very likely to offset your processing costs. So whereas the baby boomers are kind of half and half on whether or not they would do that, Generation X is very willing to do that. I highly encourage you to enable that that option on your donation forms. It is a great way to kind of increase revenue by offsetting the fees that you have to spend processing those donations. No shock, since they prefer to give digitally. This group also does prefer to communicate with you digitally, including receipts. About half of them want email receipts, which is by far the largest group, and they pretty much want them immediately. So if you have a nonprofit fundraising platform that enables like auto send receipts, turn that on, send them out, you'll make everybody happy. They want to hear from you a little more frequently than their baby boomer counterparts. Baby boomers wanted to hear from you quarterly, if at all. Generation X wants to hear from you quarterly or monthly. So they're a little more invested in staying involved that way. One thing that I thought was really sweet was that this group really likes receiving updates by personal phone call. So if you really want to knock their socks off, give them a call. I work with a coworker. I've shared this story 100 times. She made a gift. She didn't really even think about it. A couple days later, she got a call from the CEO of the organization she supported, thanking her personally for her gift. And everyone at the QGIV office heard about it. We were all very impressed by that. So if you want to impress a bunch of people in our age group, give us a call. I did also think that it was interesting that they wanted to see more information about how their gift was used. So baby boomers wanted to know from a financial perspective how that their gift was invested well, it was used well. Generation X kind of marks a shift away from that. They want to hear stories about how their gift was used and they want to see real life tangible outcomes. This is also the group that is most likely to participate in a peer-to-peer event. If you are looking for ways to engage Generation X, this is a great opportunity for you. I really thought that Generation Z, the youngest, most tech-savvy generation, would be the one who's most likely to participate in this kind of event. And it's Gen X, so get them involved. Ask them to raise money for you. They will do so. All right, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite generation, and I want to get your impressions on what you think millennials are most motivated by. What is their driving motivator behind giving a nonprofit their support? Oh, even more than Gen X. You guys are saying that they are very connected to your cause. I am loving how quickly you guys are joining in. This makes me so happy. All right, so about 70% of you are saying that they give because they're very connected to the cause. Like Gen X, though, millennials want to give to you because they want to be known as philanthropic. The organizations they support are very important to them, and they see their philanthropic activity as very closely tied to their personality and their legacy. That is why so many millennials will research you before they make a gift. Even more millennials than Generation Z will do research. 66% of millennials will do that. As I talk about millennials, I'm going to say we a lot because I am a millennial. So if I do that, that's why. As a general rule, they are going to look at your social media channels first, just like Generation X. So keep your social media channels up to date. As you're updating them, make sure you send story-driven updates and testimonials. Millennials, like Generation X, give to the people who you are supporting with your work. We don't care so much about the organization. That sounds harsh, but it's true. We care about the work that you're doing. So emphasize the people that you're working with and what you're doing on your social media channels. Millennials are very put off by poor social media presence and inconsistent communications. We are very into transparency as a generation, and we kind of assume that if you are not updating your social media channels regularly, that you're being shady and are not necessarily trustworthy. So social media is important to every generation. It's especially important to this generation. So please keep up with your social media channels. I know it's work. It is hard work to keep up with social media, but it is among the most important things that your younger generation stoners are looking at. This was interesting. So we know that Generation X likes to give to you online. Millennials take it a step further. We do want to support you online, and we want to do it by text or app. If we are donating, many of us want to use a digital payment system like PayPal or Apple Pay. We are really embracing that technology. I did think it was interesting that over 25% of us want to donate to you by e-check. I don't think I've ever donated by e-check, but this just proves that a generation is made up of many different individuals. We are kind of motivated by tax deductibility, not really the number one thing that we think about. So if you really want to connect with us, understand that we're on our phones. We want to look at your social media platforms, probably going to do it on our phone. We will give to you on our phones. And once we give to you on our phones, we are very likely to continue the pattern that Generation X has done and offset the processing costs on our phones. We do want an email receipt, and we generally want it within 24 hours. So we're not as impatient as the Generation X who wants it immediately, but we do want it pretty fast. We want to receive updates quarterly or monthly, just like our Generation X counterparts. We're very interested in the story-based follow-ups. So we want to know what you're up to, what you've done, and how we can help. We, shocking, are going to look at your social media channels, but we do appreciate personal phone calls. Phone calls are getting more popular amongst all the different generations, which I find very funny because I don't want to talk to you on the phone. Just another example of generations being made up of individuals. I have in the past had people ask about leaving voicemails. If you want to leave a voicemail, do it. I know I will not answer the phone if I am not expecting a call or know who the caller is, but I do check my voicemail. So if you are trying to reach out to your millennial donors and they don't answer, I wouldn't recommend trying to call them back over and over again. Just leave a voicemail. They'll get it. So that is kind of a wrap up of the millennial overview. And we're going to get to my favorite group of people. I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm sure you're shocked. What are we going to talk about with Generation Z? What do you think is their biggest motivator for supporting a nonprofit? While you guys are voting, I am going to tell you this. The millennial generation is all above the age of 18. The Generation Z generation is not. We only interviewed Generation Z members who are 18 or older. So we are not representing children in this study. So do you remember, as I'm going through this, that while these are the people who are donating to you, they do only represent a relatively small portion of Generation Z. It looks like most of you have chimed in and you said that the biggest motivator is being connected to the cause. Shockingly, that is not the #1 reason. This group too is very concerned with being philanthropic, being known for philanthropy, and having that be part of their identity. This is very surprising to me when I got the answers showing that the 3 of the 4 generations that we were interviewing were concerned with being known for their philanthropy and having that be part of their legacy. I was stunned. That's not what I expected at all. Like you, I thought people wanted to be really connected to the cause, and that certainly is important for every group of nonprofit donors. But the reason you'll see so many of these younger donors from Generation Z up through Generation X donating on and communicating with you on social media is because what we do in terms of philanthropy is so closely tied to us that we don't really separate it from our personal lives. Generation Z is not quite as into research as their older counterparts, but they certainly are very research driven. Well over half of your Generation Z donors are going to research you, and the things that they're going to look for are stories from the people that you've helped. So if you're noticing a pattern, a lot of these generations will check your social media channels to make sure that you're legit, and they'll do it and look for information about the people that you're helping. Like their Gen X counterparts, this group is very put off by poor social media presence and outdated websites. So again, keep your websites updated and active. A full third of this group wants to give to you through social media channels, and this statistic made me laugh out loud, and I'm still kind of unpacking this. So 41% of Generation Z donors said that stock and asset transfer, and only a third of them said that they prefer digital currencies. But the stock and asset transfer is cracking me up. I don't know what that means. If I was going to make an educated guess, I would think that stock and asset transfer in this case does refer to in-kind donations, maybe participating in canned food drives or donating clothes or school supplies to different drives. I really wish I could go back and ask every one of these survey respondents what they meant when they said that, because I can't imagine a 19-year-old transferring stock to a nonprofit, but maybe I don't have a good enough imagination. This group is only somewhat motivated by tax deductibility. It doesn't really register in the top reasons that they will donate, but it is kind of a nice perk for them. This group is very likely to offset processing costs. So if you'll notice, the 3 youngest generations are very motivated to do that. So if you can turn on that option, please do. This group does prefer an email receipt, which I'm sure is not surprising to you at this point, but they do want to hear from you much more frequently than their older counterparts. They want updates on a monthly basis. They will go to your social media channels to kind of check that out. And really what they want to see are stories from the people they've helped. So that is certainly a trend. So as you're updating your social media channels, share stories about the people you're helping, include some testimonials, and you will catch 3 of the 4 generations' attention with that. I loved here that they, of course, want to look at your social media channels, but they do appreciate personal phone calls. I know that there's a lot of, maybe cynicism isn't the right word, but people don't talk on the phone anymore, especially younger people. So I almost feel like getting a personal phone call is so strange these days that if you actually do take the time to make a personal phone call, people really get excited about it. All right, so I just threw a ton of data at you, and I'm going to show you a couple of things that we can actually concretely take away from this data. So the way you can use this data with your donors, there are a few different things you can do. One, really take away that you need to keep your social channels and your website updated. That will hit 3 of the 4 generations and get their attention. Start with sending quarterly direct mail updates, not necessarily appeals, just updates, and adjust your timing as necessary. So one thing that was interesting to me that didn't really crack the top 3 motivators for the younger generations did express that many of them did appreciate receiving direct mail, but they would still give to you online. I know I have actually gone online to give after receiving direct mail appeals. So try sending all of your donors, regardless of age, the occasional direct mail appeal, and then kind of tailor your approach based on the feedback you get. I said a few times throughout the presentation that the generations are big groups of people made out of individuals. Your donor group is not like anyone else's. You have unique donors who have unique viewpoints in how they want to interact with you. If you are struggling to kind of get a grasp on where to start, try sending a survey to your donors and asking about their individual preferences. Then give them what they want. I will throw in the caveat that if you don't have the capacity to give your donors what they want, then maybe you don't do the survey. If you hear your donors saying that they want to hear from you on a monthly basis, but you don't have the bandwidth to do a monthly newsletter, maybe hold off. Okay, so I told you at the beginning of this presentation that one of the biggest reasons to understand this information is so you can increase your donor retention rates. So we're going to talk about attrition. So the majority of each generation that we surveyed said that at some point they had given long-term support to a nonprofit, and as many people said they had stopped long-term support of a nonprofit. But we wanted to know why. So these are the top 3 reasons for each generation that they stopped supporting a nonprofit that they had previously supported over a long period of time. I want to draw your attention to these reasons. So baby boomers felt their money wasn't used wisely. Generation X stopped because they felt their money wasn't used wisely. Millennials felt their donation didn't matter. And Generation Z stopped because they never received an impact update. What you can see here is that somewhere there is a breakdown in how we're communicating our donors' impact to those donors. Each generation had in their top 3 reasons for stopping support that they stopped giving because in some way, shape, or form, they all use different phrasing, they didn't feel like the donation they gave was being used to support the cause they cared about. So what we can take away from this is that we need to communicate donors' impact if we want them to continue to give. This is another one that was really interesting because there was a similar pattern across all 4 generations. So baby boomers were likely to say that they stopped giving long-term because they were asked for support too frequently. The other 3 generations said that they stopped giving because they were never asked to give again. So somewhere there is a breakdown with how we're asking our donors to support us. My guess would be if baby boomers are responding to direct mail appeals, if every piece of direct mail they get is an appeal and they're not getting that direct mail update on what actually has already been done with their investment, they're going to feel like they're being asked too often. And again, this is an educated guess, but still a hypothesis. The younger generations who are all interacting with you on social media are giving and then maybe never being asked again. So maybe take a look at your appeals that you send out on your social media channels and see if you're asking. There was a very interesting difference that I wanted to point out. So both the Generation Z donor base and the millennial donor base said that they couldn't afford to continue their support. That was their number 3 reason for stopping. Millennials and Generation Z, as a general rule, have less disposable income than the two older generations. So there is a very real possibility that if you have captured generational donors in those age groups, that they have stopped supporting you because they don't have that income anymore. So if you are interested in retaining those people, I would give them opportunities to engage with you and support you in other ways. Ask them to participate in peer-to-peer events, ask them to volunteer with you, ask them to share your stories on social media, be a social advocate for you. Try getting together with your younger donors and brainstorming ways you can keep them engaged, even if they can't financially support you. So how can you give your donors what they want, knowing all of these top attrition reasons? One, focus on making sure your donors know that their gift mattered by showing them the impact that they've made. They have told us they want testimonials and they want stories and they want financial reports. So make those available to them so they know that their money is being used to support the cause they care about. Tailor your appeals to your channels. So maybe lay out in a spreadsheet or a calendar a plan where baby boomers aren't getting an appeal with every interaction they get from you, but other generations need to be asked more frequently. So maybe if you're sending 4 annual appeals, pull it back to like 2 or 3 and make sure your baby boomers get a direct mail update before you ask them to give again. And make sure you're asking your people on your social media channels periodically to donate to you so they will feel that they've been asked. And do try to help your younger donors who want to support you but can't give you actual dollars. People who volunteer with you and participate in peer-to-peer events are more likely to become donors in the future than those who don't. So engaging those people right now, even if they can't give to you financially, is very important. I'm going to do a lightning round with you where we asked each of these people groups if they were engaged with Giving Tuesday. Here's a breakdown of how they responded. 38% of people said that they didn't give on Giving Tuesday, but they knew what it was. 28% said they did give on Giving Tuesday, and only 34% had never heard of Giving Tuesday. So here's a breakdown of what happened. So 17% of baby boomers donated for Giving Tuesday, 45 didn't, and only 38% of them said that they weren't aware of the holiday. So that's a pretty great awareness rate. 62% is not anything to sneeze at. So if you want to increase baby boomer participation in Giving Tuesday, here are a couple of ideas. Send a Giving Tuesday appeal through the mail, or you could even try what we've seen some people do and send a save the date kind of announcement through the mail. So people are either able to get in their donations for Giving Tuesday by Giving Tuesday, or they know to go online and look out for that. Reference an urgent need in your appeal. We did a study with Campaign Monitor last year, and the #1 reason people said that they would be motivated to give beyond their standard giving pattern is if they got an urgent appeal. So reference an urgent need and then tell them how they can get involved by donating on Giving Tuesday. And then I said this already, but do try to send a Giving Tuesday appeal through the mail. It is kind of a funny digitally driven holiday, but you can totally make it work through the mail. I've seen it happen, so try that. Gen X, pretty aware of Giving Tuesday. 33% of them donated. Having a third of a generation donate on a giving holiday is pretty cool. If you want to boost engagement from your Gen X donors, try sending an email appeal and fill it up with testimonials and personal stories. And this is important. Send it from both the people who benefit from your work and from donors or other people who have supported your work and who can kind of give that social proof element to tell Gen X that supporting you is a good idea. Make it easy to give. I'm going to emphasize that in a couple of places. They should be able to click in your email and immediately be on your donation form. The more hoops they have to jump through, the less likely they are to give. And then send them immediate receipts. This is the group that wants to hear from you right away after they give. So build a Giving Tuesday receipt, queue it up, maybe throw in some text about that tax deductible thing that Gen X is really into, and have it ready to go on the day of Giving Tuesday. So this is the group that was most engaged in Giving Tuesday. Millennials were very aware of Giving Tuesday. Many of them donated. The best way to engage this group is to get and stay active on your social media channels. Post throughout the day, post about your fundraising progress, get them excited about the momentum that you're building. And while you're doing that, include lots of pictures and stories, also what Gen X wants, from clients that reiterate the impact that they're going to make when they give you money. Try a text keyword for Giving Tuesday. I don't know if you have ever tried using a text fundraising platform before, but remember, donating by text is one of the most popular giving methods for this group. So there is no time like Giving Tuesday to try it out. See if you like it, see if your donors like it. And then finally, Generation Z. Remember, this is only a small sliver of Generation Z, but they did have a 58% awareness rate, which is pretty great, but you can do more to get them involved. When you are trying to get this group to support your your Giving Tuesday campaign, tell them how their gift will make an impact. This group, I did want to point out, is most likely to donate to you during the winter holidays when they are outside of school. So I think Generation Z is actually usually in school when Giving Tuesday is going on. So try to kind of raise awareness about the day before the big day so it's kind of on their radar. I would encourage you to explore a text to donate campaign, just like for millennials. But with this group of people, try to communicate with them by outbound text as well. They are more active on their phones than pretty much any other generation. So if you can get their attention with an outbound text message, you can increase the likelihood that they will engage with you there. And then do focus on sharing how they can help if they can't make a financial gift. Give them ways to get involved. Many of these people, I almost said kids, don't want to do that, but many of these are students who are in school when Giving Tuesday is going on. It's before winter holidays. They maybe don't have a job, but they do have other tools that can benefit you. So give them other ways to help. So big takeaways from today: donors want to give to you. That is a very goofy takeaway, but that is across the board, true for all generations. Another big takeaway is that all of your donors are interested in seeing and understanding the impact they make with your organization. They all want to participate with you through both digital and analog methods. People, even the digital people, really love a phone call. So some of the old tried and true methods still apply to the younger generation. Social media is really important. 3 of the 4 generations are going to look there before they look almost everywhere else to decide if they're going to support you. And I did want to just reiterate in these takeaways, your donors are more similar than you think. They all have similar ideals. They may have different styles and different communication preferences, but they're more similar than you think. And the best way to really understand your individual unique donor base is by using these takeaways as a basis for a plan to communicate with those people, but then tweak it as necessary to suit people's preferences. I just threw lots of information at you. I'm going to turn things over to my dear friend Jennifer, if I can figure out where she is. There we go. And she is going to show you some very cool stuff that other QGIF clients are doing. And if you have questions about this presentation, we will get to those during our Q&A panel.
Alrighty, I think I have official control. Do you see my screen, Abby?
I do.
Awesome. Great job, by the way. Awesome. Okay. So before we jump into Q&A, I want to walk you guys through some client survey takeaways. Let me just get this out of my way. I got to be honest with you, this is in my way. There we go. Okay. So I want to take you through some client survey takeaways. We did a client survey earlier in the year when the pandemic was getting kind of kicked up and wanted to understand how people were pivoting. So I want to take some major themes away from that and share those with you. And then 3 examples of how our clients have responded during this time. My favorite thing to do is share with you what our clients are doing. They're always creative, but they've been so creative during this time because they've had to be, and they've really shown up, and their donors have really rallied around them. So that has been absolutely amazing to see. Okay, let's get started. Actually, we're going to start with a poll because the most important thing is what we are snacking on during quarantine. Let's lighten things up a bit. We've been talking about fundraising for quite some time now. I'm going to throw a poll up on the screen, and I would like you to tell me what you're snacking on. You should see that now. I have 3 that are actually equal. So I'm trying to get the screen. Awesome. Give you 30 more seconds to share.
The poll actually went away on the screen.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you. I don't know if I think it shared results before everyone got the chance to vote. Are there results? I don't know why I can't see it. I don't know. All right, well, that might have been a flop poll. It's already closed. Mine is wine, in case that's not clear. Also, carbs are a favorite right now. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so we are going to jump into the survey I talked about. The survey that we did, just ask people how they were pivoting during this time. And there were 4 major themes that kind of arose during that time. And the first and foremost was that their gifts needed to be tangible. You need to have clever storytelling. You need to connect your donors to your cause now more than ever. Obviously, that's always important, but just making it a little bit more tangible now is very important. So things like online storefronts, which I have an example to show you, to make the gifts feel more real. Impact statements, those are one of my favorite things in fundraising always, but right now they're even more important than ever. Amazon wishlist started making an appearance more so once the pandemic hit, so that people could really feel like they knew what they were buying and how they were making an impact. So just make sure you're taking a look at your asks and making sure things are really tangible. The second one was more personal connection. So of course, especially at the beginning of this, I know some of us are transitioning back to a little bit more normalcy, not all of us, but those personal connections are something that everyone really misses. So although, some of you do reach out to your donors, you call your first time donors or whatever, some of the responses were indicating that they were kind of taking away those thresholds and contacting all of their donors and making those calls, and their volunteers as well, just so that people were getting that personal connection. As far as fundraising goes, of course, Zoom calls, go to meeting, go to webinar, all of that, Facebook live events, streaming with YouTube Live, all of that became a lot more important and a lot more a part of our daily lives. So make sure, if you have not begun to do more of that, which I can't imagine that you haven't, that you are pulling that in. Next is reinventing your volunteer opportunities. So this has been a place where we've seen people be really creative. A couple of examples, we have a client called Downtown Rescue Mission, and they have a little girl that benefits from their services that does dance classes on YouTube and streams those to help keep her community active and engaged. And it's just a fun, cute little thing that she does. And then there's another example with a Girl Scouts troop that we work with, and they engaged lots of different people. They actually had more volunteer opportunities because they needed virtual volunteers with, such as tech troubleshooters or content experts, things like that, so that they could lead virtual activities for the Girl Scouts. So lots of different opportunities for volunteering and reinventing what that looks like for your organization. And then finally, and what we're here to dig into today, is reimagining your live events. I've used the word creativity 15 times already, but honestly, seeing the things that you guys are doing and how you're reacting to this has been really, really inspiring. We're seeing dunk tanks, egg hunts, all kinds of stuff, pay to stay home, lots and lots of stuff, but we're going to dig into 3 today. So I pulled 3 that have pivoted, and I want to share those with you now. So first, we're going to start with an organization called BH Care Foundation. They provide care for folks who are struggling with mental health issues, substance use issues, or domestic violence. What they did is they turned their single day walk into a 2-week virtual ride. They leveraged peer-to-peer to engage their donors, and they did a really good job of informing their supporters with how to be a virtual fundraiser. It's different. It's not just different for you, it's different for your donors. So they did a really great job of just really spelling it out, giving lots of tools, giving lots of content surrounding that. The great news is that they had their highest fundraising numbers to date. So when I said earlier that people, like donors, were really rallying around the organizations, it's so true. We're seeing it across the board. So my favorite thing about this particular event was they did a virtual finish line, and they hosted it on Zoom. They had a specific time, and the staff was able to kind of address everybody, thank everybody. And then you'll see here on the screen some rotating images, but you could actually print out a bib and other things, and people were finishing the race and taking photos, and they did kind of a, you know, a little slideshow with some music. It makes everybody emotional, and it built that sense of community that you're missing from being in person at an event. So let me show you what that event looks like. So this is BH Care Foundation. This is their peer-to-peer event that they built out. This is the full video. So this will be in my slides that we'll send out after the fact, but you can view what their virtual finish line looked like. So lots of information on how to get involved. The things I wanted to show you specifically were this event details page. What I liked is lots of FAQ, lots of how to do things. And then down here, they actually provided some bike routes using Ride with GPS. Quick side note, we do integrate with lots of the fitness apps. We have seen a huge rise in the usage of those because it's a way to stay connected and build community with an app. So you can do that, and you can see here they did that with Ride with GPS. They have other options linked, but it was really cool for them to build the routes for everybody. So no one had to think about it. They just picked a route and they went. So that was a neat integration that they did. And then if I click on their tools and fact page, you will see here lots of frequently asked questions, but my favorite part on this page is lots of tools over here to the right, easily linked. So those virtual racing bibs that people had the kids colored or that they were holding up in their images, the social media graphic, that type of thing, they have linked for easy access. And then they spelled out different ways to get involved on each of the social media, not all of them, but the 3 maybe most popular for their audience, social media platforms, you know, how to get involved, what hashtags to use, who to tag, and that kind of thing. So they did a really great job of engaging their audience and saw great success. So that is BH Care Foundation. Let's get back to example number 2. Next, we're going to talk to you about the Sharing Center. The Sharing Center is a faith-based nonprofit that provides essential resources to those in need. For those of you that are on the call who were here last time, this is a repeat example, but I have some updates, so don't go anywhere. So first and foremost, they canceled their spring fundraiser, their big spring fundraiser, and converted it to a multi-pronged 5-week virtual fundraising campaign. Something of note here would be that, you know, you may have 1 or 2 big events, but most likely you're not always going to be able to replace that huge event with 1 virtual event. You're going to want to think and be creative and pull in lots of other things to make or to take the place of that revenue that you were getting from the big event. So don't be, you know, don't put a lot of pressure on yourself to raise it all in 1 virtual event. We're seeing lots of people do larger campaigns and lots of little things. So anyways, back to the Sharing Center, their 5-week fundraising campaign included an online donation form, a virtual pantry drive, and then their luncheon, they actually leveraged peer-to-peer and turned their table captains into ambassadors and had those folks, you know, still reach out to the folks they would have, you know, they would have invited to their table and more and raise funds that way. And they were very successful. That was a new use of the peer-to-peer system for sure. So with that campaign, with over 2 weeks left in that campaign, they were able to raise over $355,000. And over 100,000 of that was processed online through QGive. So very exciting. They did very well. The other thing that they pulled in, which I loved, especially towards the beginning of all of this, was a day of kindness where they kind of flipped the script and they spent the day talking about and featuring like inspiring words and motivation for their donors, their volunteers, their shoppers, and made it about them instead of about raising money. And they have continued this in little ways throughout this pandemic. So that was neat to see. And then an update is they've decided to go virtual for their fall events as well. They have an event now called Sweet Bites and Bikes. It's going to happen in September, and it's going to take the place of their Sweet charity event. That's an anniversary event that they normally do. So with this event, what they're going to do is encourage folks to pledge 34 miles on bike or 3.4 miles if they're running or walking, in recognition of the 34 years that they have supported the community. So already making that call, seeing lots of fall events coming up, lots of auctions, lots of peer-to-peer that is remaining virtual maybe for the rest of the year. So people are getting to flex that creative muscle again in the fall, and hopefully today you'll see some examples that'll help you with that. So let me show you their virtual pantry. This has been very popular in lots of different ways. This is also our peer-to-peer platform, and they kind of simplified it, and there's a donate option. So if someone just wants to come on and donate, one time or monthly, they're able to do that. But the cool part is they can actually go to the store and stock the pantry. So if you pull up the pantry, you can see here that they have some categories: buy in bulk, healthy snacks, things like that, and they can actually upload images. So I can click an image, I can choose how many I want to put in my cart, it will fill the cart, and I can continue shopping or check out. So this, we talked about things, or not things, gifts being tangible at the beginning of this, and this is a really, once we shared this example, we saw them spinning up all across our client base in lots of different ways. You're gonna see it in the next example too, in a totally different format, but the store in our peer-to-peer platform is definitely a great option for this type of thing, and it has been very successful for them and for lots of other clients. Alrighty, back to our third example. And our third example is Crossroads School. Crossroads School provides education and other services to students with autism. And overall, I'm very impressed with Crossroads School. They have done so much. Back to the we can't replace one event with another virtual event. They've done a lot of things to meet their donors where they are at. They've got a broad spectrum of different types of folks to support them, and they found something for everybody. So they've pivoted in a big way. And what they did was they spun up a virtual 5K and family fun day. And it included multiple virtual components. So instead of a finish line Zoom, they did an opening ceremony Zoom, which was really neat. And then my favorite part is their dunk tank. So they use the peer-to-peer store, and I'll show it to you, but they use their peer-to-peer store to sell water balloons to dunk folks that the balloons were purchased for. They did a touch-a truck, they did the traditional run walk. With them, they did it all in the same day. They kind of had a time frame, and then they did the dunk tank portion after that. We'll see the schedule when we scoot over to that example. And then they also did bingo. One of the resources that we're going to send out to you after the fact is a bingo card, like a template that you could use as well. But I have theirs pulled up on the screen here, and it's just a fun, easy way to get people involved and give them some fundraising ideas. On top of the virtual 5K and family fun day, Crossroads School also decided to do an online auction for the first time. They were kind of forced into it. They normally do pen and paper, but they did have some auction components that they wanted to integrate. It wasn't necessarily part of the 5K and family fun day, but they kind of ran it alongside and connected the site so that it was very easy for their supporters to navigate. And then the other thing with them is they just did so much. So they did social dance parties, so dancing on Zoom, where it was free to register and dance and have that personal connection, but they were just very transparent and said it's free to come dance, but we've had to cancel our events. We still have a community to serve. if you would like to make a donation, that would be awesome. So they did that along with virtual trivia nights, which are popping up everywhere as well. And just so many things, lots of engagement on social media, that type of thing. So they really went out and did a lot of different things and were pretty successful. Their event. So this is their 5K and Family Fun Day. You'll see that they had an actual schedule. Many of the virtual events that we see people do, especially something like this, it'll just kind of be a 2-week period or whatever, and you can complete the activities when you want. But they had a schedule so that they could do that virtual dunk tank where everyone had a slot, and the opening ceremony via Zoom, and really try to build that community even though they couldn't be together, which I thought was really, really neat. They had merchandise. I know for the virtual trivia, they were actually just giving away swag. So that's kind of low hanging fruit, right? You have swag sitting around and you can provide that instead of having to come up with cash prizes or things like that, donations, that type of thing. So anyways, this is their event. I want to show you the virtual dunk tank, excuse me. So similar to the virtual pantry drive, same functionality, but instead of food, it's people. And you can click in here to mark and buy as many water balloons as you would like to and add those to the cart and check out. The cool thing about this is it's also integrated with registration. So if someone was registering to be part of this, they could make those balloon purchases during that registration. So it was just one transaction to make it really easy. And then of course I had that schedule here, and then we're going to include this. You guys will have to watch the video if you have a couple minutes. They actually like socially distanced drove up and like took video of people getting dunked with the water balloon. So it was really kind of neat, and they had a lot of fun with it. And then they have their online auction here as well. They linked it right to their peer-to-peer event. On the online auction page, you know, they've got some basic information, how to use the giving app, and all of their auction items are listed here as well. So you can see all the items. You can click to get more information and see more pictures and things like that. But for being their first online auction, they did really well, and they were really satisfied with how it went. And I'm sure we'll be doing more online when they get back. Very exciting, and they did a great job. So those are my 3 examples. I wish that I could spend the rest of the day showing you more examples, because I think you'd be really, really inspired. But we are going to jump into some questions as we promised you. So hopefully you're inspired, but we are going to jump to questions. I was collecting some during Lori and Abby's presentation, so I'm going to pull those up and engage them, and then we'll see what came in during my presentation. All righty, are you ladies ready?
Sure.
Are you with me? Awesome. All right, we're gonna start with one for Lori. So I was just in another webinar for accessibility, and they talked about how buttons with words other than donate were not accessible. Do you have any words or phrases that we can use that are both not donate, but also say exactly what the button is for?
Yes, I do. So think back to some of the words you typed in at the beginning, but building on those, I care and will give today, or show your donor love. Make it fun for me to click on and understand that I'm doing something more. Build a river. I've had one organization, and I thought, well, how do you build a river? Well, they had this whole thing of how they were building a river of support for their organization. So the main thing is they don't decide to give by what you have in that donate button. They decide to give based on what Jennifer and Abby have said. Your message is targeted to them. They understand their impact. They've fallen in love with a person. Now they just want to know how to do it. I'm fine if you have donate somewhere on your website, but I love it if you've got words like invest, take action, give now, things like that that are short and get me to do whatever it is you want me to do.
Awesome. Love it. All right, we have a couple of questions that came in for Abby about the survey. What was the average income of the people who were polled, Abby? Do we have that data?
We sure do. So the biggest group of donors, I have it pulled up. They earn in a year between $50,000 and $74,999. So that's the biggest group. And then the next biggest group earned between $75,000 and just under $100,000. And then the close third, very close third, earned between $35,000 and just under 50. So as a general rule, these are middle class donors, not the people who are very wealthy and have a lot of discretionary income.
Great. Thank you. The other question on the survey specifically was how many folks responded to your research? I believe you covered that at the beginning, but can you just let us know that one more time?
Yeah, so we got around 1,300 responses to the survey. So those 1,300 people that we actually interviewed were the people who had donated within the last year. So 1,300 people who had given in the last year, that was the number of responses that we counted in the data.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Coming back to you, Lori. We got a question. I understand that the relationship between orgs and supporters needs to be cultivated consistently. However, have you found there to be ideal times during the year to solicit funds or implement campaigns to raise funds?
You know, it used to be once upon a time that spring and fall were the best times of year. This year, especially with no real difference in any given day, we're seeing year-end, like holiday level giving in April and May and June and July, because people that are being clear and asking their donors to give in a way that's inspiring are giving multiple times. I do some really deep work with an organization. We've had 3 gifts from a person who'd given once, and they're all at $1,000. Never happened before, but they're being really clear about what the dollars right now are being used for. That said, pandemic is a little different. Now, the time that we're in is a little different. The general, spring and fallish time, always ask then. Please don't forget to ask then. But if there are other things like, when is the birthday of the founding of your organization? Create a campaign around that. There's no better, tool to use but QGive to help do that. Make it work for you, and then have us really understand the why behind it. What's the impact I'm going to make?
Great. Another one for you, Lori. Is an email as good as a call for first-time donors?
No. And Abby, I love your research. Most of the work that I do is based on Penelope Burke's research. She does 25,000 donors a year in the US and 25,000 in Canada. Phone still works for the reason it was invented. And like you said, Abby, people are using the phone more for what it was intended. A voicemail is very powerful. I actually have some thank yous that are from years ago that I saved because they were so warm and so lovely. You don't have to get the person live to have it have an impact. Just as you all were talking about in your office, people tell their friends when they've been called and thanked, especially if it's the first time from an organization.
Absolutely.
Great. A couple more on the survey, Abby. How did you collect the data? Was it email, website, phone call? How did we do that survey?
So we actually sent that survey out through a third party. We didn't want people to think that we didn't want getting a survey from a fundraising platform would color their answers. So we actually used a third party website that specializes in market research and surveying individuals, and they received an email inviting them to take that survey, and then they processed the survey through that third party's website. So it didn't come from us at all. They didn't know what it was for.
Perfect. Thank you. There's a couple here for me that are more QGIV related that I'll knock out real quick. Can we access these fundraising sites? I'd like to look at them in depth. Yes, there is an additional slide that will be included in my PowerPoint that will have the links to the 3 events that I shared, so you can get in and click around and see everything and kind of touch and feel it. And then we continue to get the question about recording of the webinar, and if that's going to be sent out. Yes, you'll be getting the webinar, you'll be getting the slides, and lots of resources for all 3 presentations. Okay, how about back to you, Abby? How does organizational culture affect Gen X giving? How diverse is it? Involvement of women, etc.
I got really excited and kind of sad when I saw the question come through. It wasn't something that we dug into in this study. I really wish we had had that opportunity, especially given recent current events and all the conversations that are happening socially around the nonprofit industry and how inclusive we are and how equitable we are. That's a really hard word, apparently. I can say that based on the survey results, we have seen that Generation X marks a transition from baby boomers into the perspectives and worldview of millennials and Generation Z. Inclusion and equality and diversity are all very important to Generation Z and millennials, and I can say confidently, based kind of on other patterns, that I would imagine it is important to Generation X donors as well. It may not be the make or break piece of information that does inspire them to actually pull the trigger on giving, but they will consider it for sure. And I got so many ideas after that question about another study we could do, but
always, right? Another one on the survey, what about the pre-baby boomer group, those born before 1946? Are they no longer viewed as a significant statistical group?
Okay, so that is a significant statistical group in certain areas. I would say if you are potentially a major gifts officer, or if you're working in planned giving, you want to be building relationships with those donors. As far as the survey goes, though, we got, and I looked it up, we had 16 responses from people in that age group. So 16 of the 1,300 meant that they were a little under 2% of the total answers. I was not comfortable drawing large conclusions about how an entire generation wanted to participate with you from such a small sample size. I did, though, fold those answers into the baby boomer answers, all 16 of them. I can say, based on those responses, that they are similar to baby boomers in their preferences and motivations, with the exception that they are not as willing to engage with you digitally as the baby boomers are. So they are very relevant. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, let me tag on that because that's so spot on, Abby. You know, you want your website, you want your social media, you want all of that to talk about, we're looking for, you know, long-term partners and all of that. Well, what if my donor base is 70-ish on average, which some organizations are. So it's somewhere on my desk here. I just got a postcard in the mail. I guess I must be in that category, from an organization that's having an online event. And they wanted to make sure I knew about it just in case I wasn't able to go online. But they serve a very substantially older population, and they always let us know about stuff through the mail. You know, it's okay to mail still. I'm getting so much less nonprofit mail right now, it's not even funny. So don't miss that opportunity. If you've got a way for me to be thinking about my will and sending me a story, just whatever it is, don't forget that group of people. There's still plenty of them alive and they've got money.
Absolutely. And they are, I mean, I think everyone is probably at least toying with the idea of, you know, end of life planning and wills. I am not a planned giving knowledge base that is very far beyond the realm of my expertise, but there are people out there who are very in tune with that with that age group, how they prefer to communicate. That's not me, but I know that those people are out there. And I bet Lori could recommend some people.
Well, and just on average, those people want a phone call. They want to meet in person when it's time. They want something tangible they can hold, so it's something in the mail, and they want to be followed up with. I've had a number of people say, I told the organization I wanted to make a gift. I even told them I was going to put them in my will, but no one ever followed up with me.
Oh, wow.
Because they don't know what to do. You know, that's the thing. You don't have to know what to do. You just have to have a conversation with that person and it'll fall into place. Really, it's very easy.
Great stuff, ladies. A couple more have come in that I can handle. Can you share links to other great fundraising projects, you know, of not just the 3 that you shared during your presentation? And the answer to that is yes. We have an awesome resource, 15 fundraising ideas, virtual fundraising ideas that we will send out in our follow-up. So be on the lookout for that to give you even more ideas. And then another one here, do you know of a reasonable text to give app? Well, I actually do. QGive does offer text giving. We offer both bill to carrier options and a phone-based option where you can add it for a month or a quarter at a time. So if you want to give it a try, if you just want to do it for a campaign and then downgrade, it's very flexible. It also includes outbound texting and list subscription. So if you want people to text, you know, your keyword to the short code, they can subscribe themselves to a list so that you can communicate with them via text message. So definitely check out QGive because we do have a great option there. What else do we have here?
Can I just say, Jennifer, I talked to a donor who was, I think he told me he was 81. And he specifically said, when you follow up, will you please text me next time? I'm like, okay. I mean, he blew all our research away, but he can't hear very well. And it's the best way for him. You know, the seeing on the computer was an issue. He can text because he's got the print really big. So we should just not make assumptions, you know your donors. Back to how do they want to be communicated with, you know, just know who they are and talk to them.
Absolutely. I love that example because you would not think an 81-year-old is going to want to, you know, mess with his phone. Yeah, but the hearing makes a lot of sense. I'm going to use that. Thank you, Lori. That's a great example. One more, it came in during your session, Lori. We would like to expand our monthly sustainer program, but our past attempts have not worked. How do we grow monthly sustainers in a pandemic context? Do you have anything to share on that?
You bet. So there has to be a compelling sense of urgency right now. 40 friends in 4 weeks to do what? But it's a small mini campaign about monthly giving that might be supporting your COVID relief fund or whatever it is you're calling it. And that doesn't mean they're giving towards that, they're giving unrestricted operating. So what's the timeline? Give today, be a part of this in this 4 to 6 weeks, and we are going to generate this many dollars from all of you. But then, of course, you have to keep them engaged so they stay giving later. The teaser is always our monthly donors get to whatever it is, you know, for the organization that I love, they have a special event that is not been online. It will be this year in the fall, where we get to hear from one of their clients, one of the folks that, you know, they really have had some opportunity to get to know over time. So sometimes it's someone who came to them in kindergarten who's now in the military. And we get to hear their story of how their life is different because of that organization. Nobody says no. You know, they only offer 100 people to go to it. And most people say yes, because we're in that sustainer giving category. We're the only ones who get invited.
Got it. That's good stuff. I love the mini campaign example. Works great for monthly donors. It also, in my experience, works really great for Giving Tuesday too. We get lots of questions on what to do for Giving Tuesday, and I think if there is that that specific digestible campaign of exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it by. That works really well for like a Giving Tuesday campaign as well.
You bet.
Awesome. Okay, so we're at 4:30. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for asking lots of great questions. There's still some coming in, and we'll do our best to get to those and follow up after the presentation. Thank you for your engagement. We really appreciate it. We will be sending out that follow-up email with lots of stuff in it. We hope that you have actionable takeaways. That is our goal here, and we hope that we achieved it. If you have any follow-up questions and you're a client, you can email support@qgive.com and we can jump right on those for you. Anyone wanting to learn more about anything that you can reach out to marketing@qgive.com. You can also call us at 888-855-9595. Don't forget to submit your CFRE template so you get your 2.5 credits for the time you spent today. And most importantly, thank you so much for joining us today, and have an awesome rest of your day. Thanks everyone.
All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.